So, who holds the powerful to account? We all expect companies to play by the rules, right? But what about the people who actually make the rules? To really get a grip on this, let's kick things off with a story about a company that got a little too big for its britches. Meet Natural Thai Location Co. Ltd. At first glance, it looks like just another name on a business registry. But trust me, there's a whole lot more to this story. And just look at that number, 125 million baht. That's their registered capital. So we're not talking about a small operation here. This was a major player, a company with some serious resources. But as we all know, even the biggest giants can fall. And oh boy, did this one fall. And here's the plot twist. Absolute receivership. Now, that's just a fancy legal way of saying the company is in such hot water that a court has to step in and freeze all its assets. So, a 125 million baht company just shut down. It really goes to show that nobody is above the law. But does that same rule apply to the government itself? Okay, so this company's downfall is a perfect example that there's a system in place. A system of rules, and if you break them, there are consequences. But that system isn't just for businesses. And that brings us to the main event, the rules for the rulers. See, the government also has to follow a rulebook. And when they don't, well, there's a whole system designed to hold them accountable too. And this is the key player right here, the administrative court. The easiest way to think about it is like a referee, but for the government. Its entire job is to watch the game and make sure that government agencies and officials are playing fair and treating you, the citizen, correctly. So that begs the question, right? What happens when the very institutions that are supposed to protect us are the ones that drop the ball? Let's jump into a few real-world cases and see for ourselves. Our first case takes us out onto a highway, where one seemingly small act of carelessness led to an absolute tragedy. So picture this, a road out in the country, totally washed out by floods. A government crew comes in to fix it, and they have to dig up a whole section of the pavement. Now, the work is totally necessary, but it's also created a really dangerous situation. Let's just break down this fatal chain of events. First, the road gets dug up. Okay. Second, the crew puts out a few of those big 200-liter barrels, painted red and white as a sort of makeshift barrier. But, and this is the absolute crucial point, they totally skipped step 3. They didn't put up a single warning sign. Nothing to tell drivers to slow down, nothing to warn them about the danger just ahead. And the result? That very night, a man on his motorcycle crashed into the site, and he was killed. His family, of course, took the case to the administrative court. And the court's verdict? It was powerful, and it was blunt. They called it a dereliction of duty. A few barrels just wasn't good enough. The failure to post proper warning signs was a clear, undeniable breach of that agency's duty to keep the public safe. The state was held responsible. Okay, this next case is a bit different. It highlights another kind of government failure. This time, it wasn't about a lack of safety, but a lack of fact-checking. A total failure of what we call due diligence. So here's the story. A company wanted to build a cemetery right next to the beautiful Khao Samroy Yacht National Park. They applied for a permit, and the local officials, well, they just approved it. The problem? Nobody bothered to actually check the exact boundaries. Turns out the land was actually inside the protected national park, a place where that kind of construction is absolutely forbidden. The crucial point here is this. The administrative court stepped in and ruled that the permit was issued unlawfully. It didn't matter if the company made an honest mistake or if the officials were just being careless. Their duty was to check the facts before signing off on an official permit. They didn't do their homework, so the permit had to be torn up. Now for our last case, and this one's really interesting because it explores a much finer legal line. What's the real difference between just an unavoidable accident and professional negligence? And this all centers on an ambulance driver who had to make a terrible choice on a very slippery road. So the government argued that the ambulance driver was being negligent. But let's break this down. What's negligence? That's, speeding like crazy in a rainstorm. It's ignoring obvious risks. But reasonable care, well, that's what this driver actually did. He slowed down for the weather, and when the ambulance started to skid, he made a split-second professional judgment not to slam on the brakes because that could have flipped the whole vehicle. He tried to steer out of it, but still ended up crashing. So what did the court say? They sided with the driver. They found that he had acted with the reasonable care you would expect from a professional in that exact high-pressure moment. He wasn't just any driver. He was a trained professional making a judgment call to avoid an even worse disaster. The crash was ruled an unfortunate accident, not negligence. And because of that, he wasn't held liable for the damages. So, what do these three cases, a deadly highway, a careless permit, and a tough call in an ambulance, really tell us? When you boil it all down, why do these rules for the rulers actually matter to you and me? Because these cases aren't just stories. They protect your fundamental rights. That highway case, that's about your right to safety on public roads. The park permit case, that's about your right to a fair process, to a government that does its homework. And the ambulance driver? That establishes your right to be judged fairly, based on the specific circumstances. These are your rights, protected by law. So we started with the question, who holds the powerful accountable? And I think we have our answer. It's the system itself, working through institutions like the administrative court. It's a powerful reminder that everyone, from the biggest company to the government itself, has to play by the same set of rules. So the real question to leave you with is, now that you know these rules exist, how does that change the way you see things?